G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today we've got a special guest, Rod, and Rod's got some Yowie stories to tell us. So we'll get into it. Over to you, Rod.
Lovely. Thanks, Jamie, for having me on and giving me the opportunity to tell about these two Yowie encounters that I've had.
It's our pleasure.
Oh, mate, thank you. Thank you. Well, a little bit about myself first. I'm a security officer on a defence base. Been there approximately 11 years and, yeah, thoroughly enjoy it. The gives me ample time on days off to enjoy the Australian bush and some of the weird and wonderful things out there. Now, my first encounter, it occurred on a weekend block in the southeast corner of Queensland here, and a good friend of mine, he bought this block, and anyway, I gave him a hand to put a cabin on it, and everything was sweet as. Quite a few years went by, and then he had started to have some strange occurrences there. So it basically starts where the cabin's been built, and anyway, my mate and I were up fishing at Cania Dam, and anyway, I'd always had an interest in yowies, and probably with those two young fellas up there at Kilcoy.
Yep.
That had a crack at one in Sandy Creek there. I believe that was about 1979. So yeah, probably pretty similar ages to myself. So yeah, as I said, I always had an interest, especially sasquatch as well. And anyway, so mate and I were fishing there, and I looked at my mate and I said, have you ever had anything strange happen down there on your block? And my mate looked at me. It was like I'd slapped him. He had the expression of, who told you, and how did you find out about it? Well, I said, well, spill your guts. What's happening down there? Anyway, he then proceeded to tell me that he'd had multiple times overnighters there, and something was coming up and slapping the side of the cabin. And it had got to the point where it was becoming, really a problem in his own head as well.
Yep, I understand.
It was a retirement block. He wanted both him and his wife to just thoroughly enjoy it. Get down there, leave the troubles of the city behind, and just enjoy what they'd bought. And yeah, so this slapping had started. It always a thinker, ex-army, and he could not explain it, and he asked for my thoughts. He thoroughly inspected everything. There was nothing loose on the cabin. There was no trees. So I said, you might have a yowie. And anyway, so this conversation took place November 2018. Now, it was a few months before I'd managed to get some time and get down there with him. So in the meantime, I'd ring him every so often and just inquire about any extra occurrences or
Yeah.
incidences down there. Anyway, during a phone call, he made mention that he'd had another incident. He had a pave the path that he'd put in, and this went from a retaining wall basically to the cabin. And this path was well and truly set for a couple of years into crusher dust. And something had plucked the pavers out of the path and stacked them on the path. And you can imagine my my eyes lit up when he told me this, and I thought, well, this is definitely something very, very strange.
Yeah, classic rock
Uh,
stacking.
well, yeah. Um, uh, I quizzed him hard on, was there any marks around the pavers, like something had been stuck under it and used to pry them up? But he said no. I was thinking maybe an echidna underneath with its snout might have flipped them, but no, it was a case of these things were plucked and then stacked. So at that point, I did manage to get down there, and my first thoughts when I arrived was I was going to walk around the cabin and have a good look at the glass on the windows and doors,
Yeah.
and see if I could see any smudge marks or maybe a face or hand pressed up against any glass. So I worked my way around the cabin, and I got to the back of the cabin, and the back section is partially caravan, and there was an air vent on the caravan, and I worked my way up to it, and I was mainly concentrating on the glass, and then I spotted this vent, and here was a handprint in the vent area. My thoughts were, whatever it was, placed its hand up just above the vent, and then it leaned in and maybe put its nose up against the vent to see if there was, or inhale any odours, and maybe find out if there was someone inside or not.
Yeah.
So
How
yeah,
just how big do you reckon that handprint was to a normal hand?
just slightly larger
Right.
than my hand.
Yep.
A fair size hand,
Yep.
tradesman hand, but yeah.
And
So
how high do you reckon that print was off the ground?
I would say approximately 4.5 feet.
Right. Okay.
Where the positioning of the vent.
Yeah.
So as I said, it was just slightly above the vent.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I sat there in amazement looking at this handprint, and then I called my mate around. He came around the side, and I basically nodded and pointed. He spotted this handprint, and he looked at me and said, "Please tell me
Hmm.
that you just did that." And I said, "No, mate, this is exactly how I found it." Which yeah, gave us all. Well, I was completely overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and yeah, my mate was just shaking his head.
Yeah. Well, I should have
So
that on the
yeah,
screen by now that we're looking at it, and like you can see all the ridges, the dermal ridges in it, and everything. Eh?
yes, yeah, it's a very, very interesting handprint. Um, as we discussed earlier, the closest I've found is a female gorilla
Right.
holding an infant. Now, to my untrained eye, the hand and the shape of the top pads look very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so the mystery deepened. Um, uh, Probably lacking knowledge on my side. Um, I'm tending towards possibly a juvenile. Um, I, socially, he might be in a position where they're forcing him out and maybe off on his own or her own. Who knows?
Yeah.
But okay, so we've got the handprint, and we decide to go for a drive. So jump in the vehicle, and quite a bit of work done around the property, and we came to a clearing. Now I'll make mention of my mate's dog, a very well trained dog. It only goes off at people. Um, General wildlife in the area. It's beside my mate all the time. It's not a kangaroo or a wallaby dog or a pig dog. It just doesn't chase animals.
Yeah.
So the dog's curled up on the back seat, and we're going for a bit of a tiki tour. And we come up on some improved pasture with a tree line. We're in one corner. The furthest tree line's probably about 600 metres, and then suddenly the dog is bolt upright, wedged between us, and just staring at the tree line up in front of us. So we pulled up and just had that. Never had a feeling like we were being watched or anything like that, but just a very spooky feeling.
Yeah.
Being in security, a lesson learnt early was always trust your dog.
Right.
Now, this property is behind multiple gates, and there is just a very, very minuscule chance of anyone else being there. It just doesn't happen. So we again found that very, very interesting. So we continued our journey, had a look around. Nothing else occurred on that trip. So so the evidence was starting to mount. Then again, speaking to my mate, he had another landholder in the district call in and see him. Anyway, the usual stuff about the the weather and the rain, and then out of the blue, my mate said his neighbour asked if he'd ever had anything coming up and slapping his cabin.
Yeah.
So my mate really, his eyebrows raised. He never stated that he was having the same problem, but he said, oh really, And he said, yeah, this is a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
And he actually stated that he thought he had a poltergeist. And so my mate inquired, was there any other strange happenings? And the other chap said he had a little thermometer tied in a tree at about 7 foot of height with fencing wire, and twice the wire had been untwisted and the thermometer thrown into the grass.
Wow.
So it was not just occurring on my mate's place, but his neighbour as well.
Yeah. And then the kangaroo you mentioned?
Yes, my mate does a little bit of shooting as well. Trying to just keep the ferals down, or the pest animals. And anyway, one evening he spotted a large roo. He had some tags there, and he would rather the stock eat the grass. So he put a shot into this roo, a nice solid hit, and Now it was on the side of the hill, not too far from the cabin. So, as I said, solid shot. Kangaroo's gone downhill, and my mate decided to collect it in the morning. So morning comes, cup of coffee, bit of a look around and a scratch. He thought he'd head out to get this roo. He got to the back of the cabin, again very close to where this handprint was. He had 2 trestles and a plank on the side of the caravan, and placed under the plank was the kangaroo. Now, the area around that is decomposed granite. A well-hit animal won't run uphill. They always, 99% of the time, they'll head downhill. This roo was, placed next to the cabin, and no blood trail, no physical marks where the roo might have, clawed its way up to the cabin. No.
Yeah, like if you shoot a roo, it's not going to follow you home.
No, no, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's really freaky.
So no explanation.
Yeah.
Apart from something picking this roo carcass up and then depositing it back at the cabin.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting.
And then can you talk about the other one too, the other incident with the boiling the skull?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the other landowner, he took an animal, and he had a pot on a campfire, and he was boiling the skull out. And he checked it prior to going to bed, and when he woke up in the morning, the pot was upended and the skull missing. The main thing is there the pot was upended.
Yeah.
My thoughts. This has spanned over, as I said, from about earlier than 2018 up to the present time, with activity still taking place.
Yeah, and you're going back out there to seek more evidence, aren't you?
Well, when I get the time.
Yeah.
But my main interest now is in the Witheren area.
Yes.
So if you like, I'll
keep going. Yeah, because that's this is what sparked you into going to Witheren, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, now my incidents or encounter at Witheren. I have no problems talking Yowies to anyone, and anyway, my niece, she'd heard of my or the occurrences happening down on my mate's property, and her carer. So my niece has a carer, and they came over for a barbecue, and my niece's carer said, basically, tell me all about these Yowies. But she'd heard previously that I was quite interested in it, and I basically told her what was happening, and she looked at me and she said, I definitely believe in Yowies. And there was vigorous nodding of heads, and I said to Leonie, well, if you're interested, we'll go for a look. And I said, I will leave it up to you to find a suitable area. And she'd already done her planning. She said Witheren, and mainly because of the truck drivers encounter down there.
Yeah, where the
and
one
many
slapped the
other
bonnet
encounters.
of the truck. Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. So away we went, and yeah, lovely lunch at Canungra at the pub there. Now this was in March of 2020, so just prior to the COVID virus.
Right.
Okay, so uh, we decided it'd be a afternoon trip into the evening, and basically just a bit of a look. So got up there fairly or reasonably early before sunset. Found a spot and uh, overlooking a valley to the east. Um, now, a keen deer hunter this way, so yeah, and done all right. So I basically put uh, in practice what I usually do when I go deer hunting.
Right.
So low light levels, reasonably quiet, wind in your face, yeah, just the basic stuff. So yeah, as I said, we got there just before dark. In hindsight, I should have been there a lot earlier and had a good look around.
Yeah.
But so yeah, parked the vehicle, nosed it towards the exit, got the deck chairs out, and took up, and just taking in a lovely sunset. Okay, so at approximately, oh, I'd say 20 to 7, my niece, she'll love me relating this, but she looked at me and she said, "Uncle, I've got to go to the toilet."
Mm.
So so where the vehicle was parked, we had a little bit of flat country, and then dropped into the valley. Uh, so I basically turned around and la la la. They went forward to the east from the vehicle. Now this flat section might have extended, maybe 20 metres, and then it dropped off into this valley. So yeah, I've got the back turn, la la la, and my niece and the carer have gone to the edge. And anyway, they came tearing back, and my niece looked at me and she said, "Uncle, you didn't hear us calling you?" And I said, "No, no, niece. I was trying to make a little bit of covering noise, so I didn't hear you." And she said, and well, they were both there and looking very nervous. And they said, "There's something down there. We can hear it moving around."
Mm.
Well, uh, I, well, being skeptical, well,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
knowing they exist, but being skeptical, first trip down there,
Yeah, going on a Yowie hunt, you
there it
don't expect
is.
to see one, no.
No, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. So we took up position back in our chairs, and all three of us. And then, as I said, this was about 20 to 7. At 10 to 7, we started to hear from the vehicle sticks being broken. And this was occurring at from the straight ahead position. I would have estimated maybe 60 metres,
Yeah.
and at the 2 o'clock position. So yeah, sticks breaking, and then the most incredible experience. Whatever, well, I'm 99% certain it was a Yowie from the 2 o'clock position. 6 bipedal footsteps, but the fastest footsteps I've ever heard. It
Wow.
was absolutely incredible, and it came straight at us. As I said, we were on a higher level. Um, it remained at a lower level, on this terrace, and it came straight in at us. Um, yeah, more in amazement. I personally, I wasn't overly frightened or anything like that, but just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it all went quiet. We knew roughly where it was. It was probably probably 30 meters out, but lower than us.
Mm.
And it went quiet for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then so it was still roughly at that 2 o'clock position. It then moved to the north, very, very quietly, but still, the occasional snap of sticks.
Yeah.
Directly in front of us at 12 o'clock, but lower down, was a standard brush and lantana.
Yep.
Now, we all heard it push the brush aside and move in directly in front of us. Again, if I'd done some prior scouting, I would have had a better idea of what was happening. But once it moved the brush aside, it became quiet again.
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to get a little bit nervous, and I'm certain the two girls with me were starting to get a little bit nervous as well. At that stage, I said to my niece, it might be a good idea if you jump in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Which she did, which was good. And then it might have been 1 or 2 minutes later. There was 7 very quick bipedal footsteps. And from that 12 o'clock position, it then moved to about 10 o'clock.
Right.
Now, at this stage, there was no mistaking what this was.
Mm-hmm.
We were just absolutely flabbergasted, but at that stage, discretion became the better part of valor. And I said to Leonie, I think it's time for us to leave. Which we then proceeded to grab the chairs, throw them in the vehicle, and get out of there.
Yeah, and
So,
you also mentioned a smell.
Oh, yes. Now, earlier on, before the bipedal footsteps, from the 2 o'clock position, now there was a nice ocean, and it was just a breeze, just nice, and sitting there, and this smell came wafting up through the valley, and to my nose, it was it smelled like that decomposing fern timber smell.
Yeah.
Now, there was only the whiff that might have lasted 30 seconds, and then it just faded. Now, with this constant breeze from the east, if it was something that was in the area all the time, we would have been smelling it all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this smell, I actually commented to the girls that, do you smell this? And this is the first time I'd picked it up, So very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Now we've made several trips back.
Yeah.
And nothing.
Yeah.
A great evening.
Mm-hmm.
Another little bit of wildlife floating around. We've spotted the odd possum and the odd wallaby.
Yeah.
Started to get a little bit keener on getting down there for a look, so I actually purchased a Besgarter Wi-Fi monocular.
Right.
With night vision.
Yeah. And, I'm hoping to see some of your footage that you catch with that.
Yeah. Well. Fingers crossed. But it certainly makes it a little bit more interesting. It's good to be able to see into the darkness with it.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, we've made a few more trips back, and for anyone else checking out the area, be careful of ticks.
Yeah,
Make sure you check yourself when you get home.
right.
Yeah,
And
and
that first night that you were there and you heard the footsteps and all that, I'm amazed you lasted as long as you did there with that.
yeah. Well, as I said, it was more amazement of what we were hearing. Probably never even had time to get scared, you know.
Right, yeah,
The but yeah, once it started moving uh, 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 to the 10 o'clock position, I thought, oh, this. Uh, in hindsight, the country does flatten out a little bit, and it's easier to get up into where we were from that position.
yeah.
That terrace effect in the landscape
Mm.
sort of flattens out a little bit there. So, but as I said, Jamie, uh, the encounter that encounter is only reinforced in my mind by the other trips where we experienced nothing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, just a friendly Australian bush.
Mm.
But that first trip down, yeah, it was definitely something very very special. Um, yeah, every time I think about it, it puts a bit of a shiver up the spine.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, those are my two encounters, mate.
Well, thanks very much for sharing them. And I've got to say that footprint, that handprint picture that I've shown people, that is truly amazing, and you're very lucky to have gotten that. And I just want to thank you again very much for sharing your stories with us, Rod.
Beauty, thanks, Jamie,
Uh,
and mate, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Has
Thanks,
to.
mate.
Okay, bye. So that's it
All
from me.
right.
That's it from me from Australian, from Where's My Yowie. I'll get back to you next time. So I'll see you later. Bye.